They called my grandfather's car a piece of junk, tried to buy me off, and then had the police chief himself lie to bury the truth. But in a quiet courtroom, a simple security camera was about to expose their carefully crafted deception. The air in the Providence Municipal Courtroom hangs thick and heavy, a mix of stale coffee, cheap perfume, and quiet desperation. I'm sitting on a polished wooden bench that's seen 1,000 stories just like mine, maybe worse. My hands are clammy, and I keep clenching and unclenching them in my lap. Every time the bailiff calls a new name, my stomach does a little flip. Across the aisle, he's sitting there, Brendan Miller. He isn't nervous. He's leaning back, one ankle crossed over his knee, scrolling through his phone with a lazy thumb, a smug little smirk playing on his lips. He looks like a guy who's never had to worry about a single thing in his entire life. And why would he? His father, Police Chief Miller, is sitting in the front row of the gallery, in full, decorated uniform, looking on like a king surveying his court. My story isn't complicated. 3 weeks ago, I was parallel parking my pride and joy, a 1998 Toyota Camry. It's not flashy, but it's mine. It was my grandfather's car, and he left it to me when he passed. I've kept it in immaculate condition. Every oil change, every tune-up, I did it myself with the manual he left me. That car is more than just metal and rubber. It's the last real piece of him I have. I had just gotten it perfectly snug between the lines in front of a local bakery when a blur of metallic blue tore down the street. It was Brendan's brand new BMW, a high school graduation gift apparently. He wasn't just speeding, he was weaving, phone held up to his ear. He tried to whip into the spot behind me, misjudged it completely, and slammed right into my rear bumper with a sickening crunch of tearing metal and shattering plastic. I was out of the car in a second, my heart pounding in my ears. The entire back end of my Camry was crumpled like a tin can. The taillight was a spiderweb of rayed plastic, and the trunk wouldn't even close properly. Brendan stumbled out of his car, not a scratch on the BMW, and the first thing he did was scoff. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "I'm so sorry." He looked at the damage, then at me, and said, "Seriously? For this piece of junk?" I was speechless. I just pointed at the wreck he'd made of my car. "You were speeding. You were on your phone," I stammered, my voice shaking with rage. He just rolled his eyes. "Look, dude, relax. I'll give you a couple $100 and we can forget this ever happened." A couple hundred? The repairs were going to be in the thousands if it was even fixable. When I told him I was calling the police to file a proper report, his whole demeanor changed. That smirk vanished and was replaced by a sneer. "Don't bother," he said, pulling out his phone. "I'll make a call myself." He didn't call 911. He called his dad. 10 minutes later, 2 cruisers pulled up, but so did a black, unmarked sedan. Out stepped Chief Miller. He didn't look at me. He walked straight to his son, clapped him on the shoulder, and surveyed the scene. One of the responding officers, a young guy who looked terrified, took my statement while the chief spoke in low, angry tones to Brendan. Then the chief walked over to me. He had this intimidating presence, a man used to being obeyed without question. "My son says you backed into him," he said, his voice flat and cold. I was floored. The lie was so blatant, so audacious. "What? No, he hit me. He was speeding." The chief just stared at me, his eyes like chips of ice. "It seems like a simple misunderstanding," he said. "We can handle this without getting insurance and courts involved. Let's not make this more complicated than it needs to be." It wasn't an offer, it was a threat. But I wasn't backing down. Not for my grandfather's car. I insisted on filing a report, and the young officer, despite the chief's glare burning a hole in his back, had to do his job. The result was a traffic ticket for Brendan for reckless driving, and a court date. Chief Miller was furious. He gave me a look that promised I would regret this, and for the past 3 weeks I have. I've been dreading this day, terrified they'd find a way to make this my fault. Case 2478, City of Providence versus Brendan Miller. The bailiff's voice jolts me back to the present. My legs feel like lead as I stand up and walk towards the front. Brendan saunters up, not even bothering to tuck in his shirt. He stands before the bench looking bored. And there, sitting behind the great seal of the city, is Judge Frank Caprio. He looks exactly like he does on TV, older, kind-faced, with a wisdom in his eyes that seems to see right through you. For the first time, a tiny spark of hope ignites in my chest. He reads the report silently, his brow furrowed. Then he looks up, over his glasses, first at me, then at Brendan. "Mr. Miller," he begins, his voice calm and even. The officer's report states you were operating your vehicle in a reckless manner, resulting in a collision. What's your side of the story? Brendan shrugs, a gesture of pure, unadulterated arrogance. It's a joke, Your Honor. I was barely moving. This guy, he says, hooking a thumb in my direction without even looking at me, he just stopped short. It was a little tap. He's blowing this way out of proportion to try and get a payday out of my dad. He glances back at his father, who gives a slight, almost imperceptible nod. Judge Caprio turns to me. And what do you say, young man? I take a deep breath, my voice trembling slightly as I recount the entire story. The speed, the phone, the sound of the crash, the sentimental value of my grandfather's car, and the disrespect. I talk about how Brendan and his father tried to intimidate me into silence. As I speak, I can feel Chief Miller's stare fixed on me, cold and hard. When I finish, Judge Caprio leans back in his chair, tapping a pen on his desk. He looks at Brendan, his kind eyes now sharp and focused. A little tap, you say, Mr. Miller. You're certain about that? Yeah, totally, Brendan says with a dismissive wave of his hand. Barely felt it. Judge Caprio nods slowly, a thoughtful expression on his face. That's very interesting, he says, his voice dropping a little, capturing the attention of the entire room. He picks up a folder from his desk and opens it, because the court has been provided with a piece of evidence that seems to tell a very different story. He looks directly at Brendan, whose smug confidence finally begins to waver. It's amazing what a good security camera can pick up these days. The bakery you crashed in front of? They were kind enough to send us the footage from that afternoon. The color drains from Brendan's face. That smug, entitled smirk dissolves into a mask of pure panic. He shoots a wide-eyed, desperate look toward his father. Chief Miller, for his part, stiffens in his seat. His jaw clenches so tight I can see the muscle flexing from across the room. The air crackles with a new kind of tension. The king is no longer comfortable on his throne. Judge Caprio gives a simple nod to the bailiff, who presses a button on a small remote. A large monitor attached to the wall flickers to life. The image is black and white, a little grainy, but the view is perfect. It's a wide shot of the street, right in front of the bakery. My little Camry is parked peacefully. And then it happens. A blur of metallic motion. Brendan's BMW comes screaming into the frame. It's not just speeding, it's reckless, a missile looking for a target. There's no ambiguity, no question of angles. The footage shows him looking down, clearly at his phone, one-handing the wheel as he attempts a ridiculously sharp turn. The impact is brutal. The monitor doesn't have sound, but you don't need it. You can see the force of the collision as my Camry is jolted forward several feet, the back end crumpling like paper. The courtroom is dead silent. Brendan's lie about a little tap hangs in the air, exposed and pathetic. The video continues. It shows me getting out, my shock and anger visible even in the grainy footage. It shows Brendan emerging, shrugging, pointing dismissively at my car. It shows the whole arrogant exchange before his father arrived. When the video ends, the monitor goes dark, but the image is burned into everyone's mind. Judge Caprio lets the silence stretch out, letting the weight of the evidence settle. He slowly takes off his glasses, polishing them with a small cloth. Then he puts them back on and fixes his gaze on Brendan. Mr. Miller, he says, his voice deceptively soft. I'm going to ask you one more time. Was that a little tap? Brendan is squirming now, his bravado completely gone. He looks like a cornered animal. Well, Your Honor, from my perspective, the angle, it felt different. It felt different? Judge Caprio repeats, his eyebrows raised. Did it also feel different when you told this young man his car was a piece of junk and tried to offer him a couple $100 to make a felony-level property damage claim disappear? Before Brendan can stammer out another pathetic excuse, Chief Miller is on his feet. Your Honor, he booms, his voice accustomed to instant command. My son is a good kid. He was scared. He's never been in trouble before. He clearly panicked and said some things he didn't mean. A simple fine would be more than sufficient to teach him a lesson here. Judge Caprio's head slowly turns toward the chief. The kindly grandfatherly demeanor is gone, replaced by the hardened resolve of a man who has presided over this city's justice for decades. Chief Miller, the judge says, his voice dropping to an icy calm that is far more terrifying than any shout. In this room, you are not the chief of police. You are the parent of a defendant. Your rank, your uniform, and your opinion hold no authority here. You will sit down, and you will remain silent, or the next words you speak will be to the bailiff as he escorts you out for contempt of court. Am I making myself clear? A wave of shocked murmurs ripples through the gallery. The police chief, a man who could shut down city blocks with a word, has just been dressed down like a schoolboy. His face turns a deep, blotchy red. For a moment, I think he's going to challenge the judge, that his pride won't let him back down. But he meets Judge Caprio's unblinking stare, and something in him deflates. He sinks back into his seat, humiliated and seething. The judge turns his attention back to the matter at hand, but his focus seems to have shifted. He's no longer just looking at a traffic violation. He's looking at a pattern of behavior, an abuse of privilege. He shuffles through some papers, pulling one from the bottom of the stack. "Lying to a court official is a serious offense, Mr. Miller," he says to Brendan, but his eyes flick toward the chief. "But what concerns me even more is the attempt to use a position of power to intimidate a citizen and obstruct a proper police investigation." He looks past me, toward the back of the courtroom where the young officer who took my statement is sitting, waiting to be called if needed. The kid looks like he wants the floor to swallow him whole. "Officer Daniels," Judge Caprio calls out, his voice echoing in the silent room. The young cop jolts upright. "I have your official report here, and I also have a transcript of your body cam audio from the scene of the incident. There seems to be a significant inconsistency between what you officially reported and the conversation your camera recorded you having with Chief Miller before you took the victim's statement. Perhaps you could explain to the court why the chief instructed you to record this as a no-fault fender bender with conflicting testimony, when the physical evidence clearly suggested otherwise. Officer Daniels looks like he's seen a ghost. He rises slowly, his movements stiff and uncertain. He keeps glancing nervously between Judge Caprio on the bench and Chief Miller in the gallery. The chief is staring daggers at him, a look that promises a world of career-ending pain. The entire courtroom is holding its breath. This has escalated from a simple traffic case to a public dissection of police corruption, and this young officer is caught right in the crossfire. "Your Honor," Officer Daniels begins, his voice barely a whisper. He clears his throat and tries again, a little louder. "Your Honor, at the scene, Chief Miller advised me that, given the conflicting verbal accounts, it would be procedurally appropriate to document it as such to allow the insurance companies to sort out the details. It's a carefully worded, jargon-filled non-answer. He's trying to walk an impossible tightrope, to obey the judge without directly incriminating his own boss. But Judge Caprio is having none of it." "Advised you?" the judge repeats, leaning forward, his voice sharp as broken glass. "Officer, let me be very specific. The bodycam transcript has Chief Miller telling you, and I quote, 'Don't make this a bigger headache than it needs to be, Daniels. Write it up as he said,' she said. 'The kid here,' referring to his son, 'says the other guy backed into him. That's a conflicting testimony. Just write it down and let's all go home.' Is that not what he said?" Officer Daniels visibly flinches. He's trapped. To deny it would be to lie directly to the judge's face, an act of perjury with irrefutable evidence against him. To admit it would be to throw his chief under the bus, a career suicide mission. His eyes dart back to Chief Miller, who now looks like a thundercloud about to burst. After a long, agonizing pause, the young officer's shoulders slump in defeat. "Yes, Your Honor," he mumbles, his gaze fixed on the floor. Those were his words. A collective gasp sweeps through the courtroom. It's one thing to suspect this kind of old boys club favoritism happens. It's another to see it laid bare under the bright lights of a courtroom, confirmed by a uniformed officer. Judge Caprio nods grimly, as if confirming something he already knew. He turns his gaze back to Brendan, who seems to have shrunk inside his expensive clothes. "Your father didn't just teach you to be reckless, Mr. Miller. He taught you that the rules don't apply to you. He taught you that you can lie, cheat, and intimidate your way out of any consequence. That is a far more dangerous lesson than simply how to drive poorly." He pauses, letting the weight of his words sink in. "Brendan Miller, on the charge of reckless driving, I find you guilty. The penalty is a fine of $500 and a 6-month suspension of your driver's license." Brendan's head snaps up, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Suspended? But I need my car for school, for work." "Perhaps you should have thought of that before you used it as a weapon and then lied about it," Judge Caprio retorts coolly. "Furthermore, you will be responsible for the full and complete restitution for all damages to this young man's vehicle." He looks at me. "Sir, have you gotten an estimate for the repairs?" "Yes, Your Honor," I say, my voice steady now. $2,750. The frame is bent." "Then $2,750 is what you will pay," the judge declares, looking back at Brendan. "Due in full within 30 days. But we are not finished." The room falls silent again. What else could there be? The initial violation is a minor one, Judge Caprio continues, his voice slow and deliberate. But the contempt shown for this court, for the truth, and for the basic principles of justice is a major one. Lying to the court, attempting to subvert the process. That shows a character problem, a problem that a simple fine cannot fix. Therefore, I am also sentencing you to 100 hours of community service. Brendan pales. 100 hours? Yes, the judge says firmly. And not picking up trash on the highway. You are to report to the city impound lot. You will spend your 100 hours there, scrubbing hubcaps, detailing repossessed vehicles, and sorting through the personal belongings of people who, unlike you, couldn't afford to pay their fines. I want you to see, up close, what happens when people can't just have their father make a problem go away. A low murmur of approval fills the gallery. Justice, it seems, is finally being served. I feel a wave of relief so powerful it almost makes my knees buckle. It wasn't just about the car anymore. It was about standing up to a bully and winning. Judge Caprio bangs his gavel. This case is concluded. But as the bailiff starts to lead a shell-shocked Brendan away, Chief Miller stands up again. His face is a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. He doesn't speak to the judge this time. He looks directly at me. His voice is low, but it carries across the silent room with chilling clarity. You're going to regret this, he says. It's not a shout. It's a promise. You have no idea what you've just done. The threat hangs in the air, a poisonous vapor. Judge Caprio's head snaps up, his eyes flashing with anger. Chief Miller, one more word, and I will have you arrested for intimidating a witness right here in my courtroom. But the damage is done. The chief just glares at me for one more second before turning on his heel and storming out of the courtroom, letting the heavy doors slam shut behind him. The sound echoes like a gunshot, and a cold knot of fear tightens in my stomach. I may have won the battle in the courtroom, but I suddenly realize the war might have just begun. The courtroom remains silent for a long moment after the chief leaves, the echo of his threat still hanging in the air. Judge Caprio's face is like thunder. He looks at the bailiff. See that this young man is safely escorted from the building, he orders, his eyes meeting mine with a look of grim reassurance. It's a kind gesture, but the cold fear in my gut doesn't subside. This man runs the entire police force in this city. A speeding ticket is one thing. Publicly humiliating him and his son is another. How many ways could he make my life a living hell? A forgotten parking ticket could become a warrant. A burned-out taillight could become a vehicle impound. The possibilities are endless and terrifying. As I'm gathering my things, my hands still shaking, the bailiff approaches me. Judge Caprio would like to see you in his chambers, he says quietly. My heart hammers against my ribs. What now? I follow him through a side door and into a small, wood-paneled office lined with books. Judge Caprio is standing by the window, looking out over the city. He turns as I enter, his expression serious. I want to apologize for what just happened, son, he says, his voice losing its judicial boom and becoming softer, more personal. No citizen should ever be threatened in a court of law, especially not by a public official. I just nod, not knowing what to say. That was not an idle threat, he continues, reading the fear on my face. A man like Miller, a man whose pride has been wounded so badly, is a dangerous man. He pauses, then walks over to his desk and picks up the file from our case, the one with the video evidence and the bodycam transcript. But what he doesn't seem to understand is that his authority ends at the door of this courthouse. Mine doesn't. He holds up the file. This is no longer just a traffic case. This is now evidence in a formal complaint I am filing myself. This transcript, Officer Daniels' testimony, and Chief Miller's blatant attempt at intimidation on a court record. I'm forwarding all of it to the State Attorney General's office and the Public Integrity Unit this afternoon. His war isn't with you, son, it's with me, and it's a war he's going to lose. The conviction in his voice, the sheer power radiating from him, finally begins to push back the fear inside me. The next few days are quiet. Too quiet. I jump at every shadow, my eyes constantly checking the rearview mirror when I drive my rental car. I expect to be pulled over at any moment. But nothing happens. Then on Friday, it breaks. The lead story on the evening news. Police Chief Thomas Miller has been placed on indefinite administrative leave. An anchor woman reads a statement from the Attorney General's office, citing an ongoing investigation into allegations of obstruction of justice and abuse of power. They show a picture of the chief looking furious, getting into a car, surrounded by reporters. A week later, a certified check for the full $2,650 arrives in the mail. No note, no letter of apology, just the cold, hard cash. I take it straight to the body shop, and the old mechanic who knew my grandpa promises to make the Camry look even better than before. A few days after that, I get an unexpected phone call. It's Officer Daniels. He sounds nervous but determined. He apologizes profusely for what happened at the scene, explaining the pressure he was under. He tells me he gave a full, sworn statement to the investigators and has agreed to testify if it goes to a grand jury. He thanks me, saying that what I did gave him the courage to finally do the right thing. My 100 hours of community service must have started for Brendan, because one Saturday, on a whim, I drive past the city impound lot. And there he is. He's not wearing his designer clothes now, but a grease-stained orange vest. He's scrubbing the grimy wheels of a beat-up sedan with a brush, his face sullen and miserable. Our eyes meet for a brief second across the chain-link fence. There's no arrogance left in his gaze, just a dull, resentful shame. He quickly looks away, and I just drive on. The final piece falls into place about a month later. The investigation is concluded. Facing indictment and a public trial he couldn't possibly win, Chief Miller resigns from the police force for personal reasons. His career and reputation in ashes. The story fades from the news cycle, replaced by the city's search for a new, more honorable chief. This morning, I picked up my Camry. The back end is perfect, the new paint gleaming under the sun. It smells of polish instead of dust. As I drive it home, the engine humming just like I remember, I feel the last of the fear finally wash away, replaced by a profound sense of peace. I won more than a court case. I defended my grandfather's memory. I stood my ground when it was terrifying to do so, and I learned that sometimes, even when the odds are stacked against you, the truth is a powerful thing. And in a quiet courtroom in Providence, in the hands of a good man like Judge Caprio, justice isn't just a word carved in stone. It's a living, breathing thing.